Joel, welcome back. Good to see you.
Good morning, Hannah.
A delayed ceasefire nonetheless. Your thoughts on what has happened in the last 24 hours?
Well, this is a clearly needed humanitarian ceasefire, and it's going to be very important to help the Palestinian people with the humanitarian assistance. And of course, to get these hostages out safely. We don't know, as you said, whether or not they're alive or dead. And this is it's a very dark kind of trickling out of hostages. But the key question that people already in diplomatic circles are talking about is, will this grow into a strategic one? Will this period, as you were discussing earlier, of this 6-week first phase be used effectively to negotiate a full-on truce and end of the war where all the hostages come out, where we have clarity about Hamas's role in the future and rebuilding of Gaza and security for Israel? Or will it just be a temporary one like we saw in November of 2023, which lasted for about 5 days, and then Hamas broke that ceasefire and fighting commenced again?
And Joel, we know the names of the three female hostages that will be released today. You have extensive experience with the State Department and, of course, diplomatic affairs. Those are the three women. Give us a sense of what could be happening behind the scenes.
Well, look, in a typical moment where we had a consistent administration, we would have the leadership, as we've seen over the last several weeks, from the White House, who negotiated this, continuing to lead with our diplomats, our career folks on the ground, making sure that the ceasefire is being managed properly, that these next steps of negotiations are already underway. And we have bureaus in the State Department full of experts who understand how to continue to engage all the different parties in the region: Qatar, Egypt, Turkey, which is adjacent to the region in the State Department bureaucracy. All of those players will be involved. Now, I believe that's still happening, but we have a presidential transition about to take place tomorrow. And that means that the senior leadership at the department who handle Middle East affairs, in particular hostage affairs, they're going to be gone. And it's not clear who's going to replace them. And so it's going to require career people moving forward with a very skeleton staff. And that's a big concern in the national security communities, is what's going to happen over the next several weeks in particular in terms of staffing and managing the day-to-day blocking and tackling of all the little things. I have to say one more thing. Just look at what happened this morning, a 3-hour delay because names were not provided by Hamas, and right. Israel then bombed into Gaza. These are the kind of tiny issues that can be devastating to an agreement and need to be resolved through hands-on engagement by staff. And we're just not going to have the same kind of officials as we did over the last couple of weeks.
I have to ask you, how likely is it, Joel, that we will get to phase 2? Because getting to phase 1 has been such a challenge.
You're right. Look, this phase 1, it's a 6-week period. It's going to really require a lot of President-elect, soon-to-be President Trump's time, and his advisor, Steve Witkoff, calling. And the Israeli people, hopefully, will see the value of this, as the Palestinian people as well. And that's the silver lining here, is that as people come out into Israel and as humanitarian aid goes into Gaza, that political will from both sides, from the populations, will be growing enough to the point to say to the leaders, do not restart, to say to Hamas, do not create opportunities for Israel to bomb, pull back so we can allow this to go forward for the benefits of all our people. But that's the hinge upon which this deal exists.
And to your point, this will now be a diplomatic matter that the Trump administration has to deal with. We know that some of the families of the American hostages did meet with Trump's incoming national security advisor, Michael Waltz, last night. I want to know your thoughts on that, Joel.
Yeah, look, to the Trump team's strong credit, they partnered with the Biden administration to really make sure that there was one American voice in these negotiations. Now, prior to the election, that was not the case. There was a lot of political jousting back and forth. And this structure of the negotiation was the plan that President Biden put forward last May, and it was not fully embraced by candidate Trump then. But it was after the election, and they've been working hand in glove. And I think the lobbying to this question of the administration and of the president-elect's team by the hostage families was the essential glue to ensuring that there was integration between the two teams. So at the very senior level, there's a lot of same thinking about how the American role should be in ensuring that this took place.
And Joel, we have all seen the pictures. The food trucks are lined up. They are ready to deliver food into Gaza. Can you talk to me about how dire the situation is there now?
Well, it's extraordinary. We've had nearly 90% of the population, if not higher, I would assume it's 100% of the population displaced inside Gaza. It's over 2 million people. The majority of the building structures in Gaza have been destroyed. Basically, the Palestinian people there don't have a way to continue to grow and obtain food without outside assistance. And so this surge matters. The question, though, is going to be how is it distributed? Will it be taken by Hamas and buried underground for their future use? Or will they allow their people to actually obtain and receive this aid? And then, of course, the mechanisms. Up until now, there's been a United Nations mechanism, the UNRWA, that is now blocked by American and Israeli aid, or we don't work with them anymore because of their ties to Hamas. So there are a lot of implementation questions, but the Palestinian people in Gaza need the aid. They need the food. It's the winter there, and this is going to be very welcome and helpful.
Yeah, I think the concern is, will these people get the food, or will it be held by this terrorist organization? Close to 1 million people were forced to leave the city of Rafah and parts of northern Gaza. A lot of them, most of them, don't have a home to come back to. There's no schools, there's no libraries, there's nothing. It's rubble. So with the ceasefire now in place, what will happen to Gaza and the future of its people?
Well, Hannah, this is exactly what we've been talking about throughout this interview is the negotiation to the end point. That is still to be determined. And the vision of the agreement is 3 phases. Phase 1, as we discussed, 6 weeks, a ceasefire for hostage agreement. Phase 2, to continue that process to get all the hostages out. But then to phase 3, the reconstruction, the political future of Gaza. Who's going to govern it? Will it be the Palestinian Authority, which is the leadership of the Palestinians in the West Bank? Or will it be Hamas somehow muddling through? We don't know the answers to that. And that's really what's going to be decided over the next 6 weeks plus. We can't have a situation, though, where there's no reconstruction and no stabilization of Gaza and expect it to improve when it comes to their ability to develop terrorist entities or for Hamas to continue to make a security risk for Israel from its southern border. So these end state questions matter, but those are to be determined and negotiated over the next couple of months.
I mean, that's what we saw play out in Afghanistan.
That's right. We did. And what we saw was ending up a failure where the Taliban is now taken over.
That's right. Joel Rubin, always a pleasure. Always appreciate the insight. Thank you.
Thanks, Anna.